Now it's time for tip-episodes with quick tips you should know. Techniques you can implement into your workflow right here on A Tale, oh yeah, A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another tip episode. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and in this week, we're going to be talking about temping. Temping, I feel like it's kind of like, it's a hot topic, but it's also not really for the general, I think, population of hygienists. So this might pertain to some of you, and maybe not a lot of you, but also if you're just kind of considering what it might take to be a really successful temp, then hopefully you will learn a few tips on this particular episode. In my role, I've done a bunch of interviews lately, and a lot of those interviews are for full-time employment, but some of them are just for, part-time employment and or temping. And I'm constantly impressed and then also surprised by the people that we interview. There are some really amazing people out there who have the widest skill set, and yet they don't really want a permanent home, which I am baffled by. But again, this is awesome for them if this is working out for them. But there are those other ones that are maybe less successful in their attempts. So I'm hoping that in this episode, we're going to be talking about, landing that temp job, but how to do it really, really well. Now, when I kind of say that out loud, I know that people are like, oh, well, there's all these temp services, these agencies that we can sign up for. There are a ton of those companies, and they're going to be able to place you in an office. And that's true. All that's true. I think the real problem, though, the real issue with this is that your perfect home, again, whether it's temp or full-time, might not be able to pay your hourly wage that you would require, and then also the fees that are tacked on by the temp placement services. And because of this, I feel like you as the individual are missing out on a lot of opportunity to find that really happy establishment. So let's run through a few things I've noticed lately. I'll give you some ideas to hopefully let you find not just that any old temp job, because, we can do that, but, the perfect temp situation, the one that you're going to love going back to as often as they need you. So here we go. Number one thing that's kind of been bugging me is the lack of information on a resume, and also the format, for that matter, of what the resumes look like. It's kind of all samey, and it's not very detailed. And so it'll have a list of basically everything that a dental hygienist does, and that's it, and where they did it. And to me, that's just not enough if I'm looking for someone to come temp for me. And it's been a while since we've had Doug Perry on the show, but if you go back and you listen to some of his episodes, he talks a lot about how to make your resume stand out. And if you're not a creative mind, you should really think about paying someone to do this for you. One of the formats that has come across my desk, one that I really love to see, is when you have your previous places of employment, that you add job responsibilities that aren't just like that scope of practice part, but the things that you were expected, things that they had laid out for you as expectations. So for example, I saw one that said something along the lines of responsible for hygiene, supplies, inventory, and budget. And for me, I was like, okay, cool. This person understands that there's going to be expenses that come with the position. And if they're temping, in my opinion, they'll be a lot more mindful of waste and things like that because they have this background in inventory and budget. And that's huge. So think about those types of things that you can add to your resume, things that are going to make you stand out, and think about those things from a business owner's perspective. Are you willing to call patients? Are you willing to review treatment plans and get treatment plan acceptance? Will you review x-rays, perio charts, and look for opportunities to convert those patients that truly need more perio services, but have been in that prophy cycle for all this time? Are you willing to review those ones and present that to doctor as something that you are looking to change? Are you versed in Kiembra and all of the interventions that come with that? So for moderate and high-risk patients, do you know what types of products are good for those patients to help them break that cycle of disease? And then going back to the treatment plan, not only are you willing to talk to them about that, but do you have good acceptance rates? And if you add all of these things, this is going to make sure that you're on the top of that stack of resumes for temping for that office. Whenever they need you, it's not even going to be any other stacks of resumes. It's going to be just you singularly because you're willing to go above and beyond and you're different. Number two is be local for the local offices. The temp matching agencies out there, they usually cast a pretty wide net. And many of them have a tool that says, hey, how far are you willing to drive for a shift? And then what ends up happening is that a dental hygienist is going to increase their radius from their home because they're not getting enough matches. So then these people are driving, further and further and further. Temping is just a numbers game. And the offices, unfortunately, they can't sign up for every single service that exists because it costs them money for everyone that they work with. So I say, take that power and put it in your own hands. There are offices within the radius that you're willing to drive. Go to them, meet them in person, drop off your resume. And more importantly, you need to track your progress. So hygienists are meticulous by nature. So after you drop off your resume, you'll assign into the list where you dropped it off, the name of the practice, what day you dropped it off, the office name, the phone number, the email address, the name of the person that you left the resume with. You should also, by the way, ask that person, like, hey, as I follow up, how should I reach out? Do you want me to call? Do you want me to stop in? Do you want me to email? Who do I email? All of that information. You need the owner doctor's name. You need the practice manager's name, if not the same person you dropped the resume off to. Then document how often you're doing check-ins, whether it's monthly or every other month, something to keep you in their mind. I really feel like we're coming full circle when it comes to the whole drop off a resume in office thing, because before, like a long time ago, that was the norm, right? You go to an office and you drop off your resume, and then things like Craigslist popped up, and then all of the online services started happening, and we lost that little bit of a personal touch. And I think it's time to bring it back. I think that if you do that, you're just going to be so much more successful than the people who are just strictly online and from a distance. Number 3 is just setting reasonable fees. But it's not just about the fees. And I think that's kind of where the misunderstanding on both sides comes from sometimes. Not only should you set a fee, but you should outline what you're going to give them in return. If you're looking to do the bare minimum, pro fee on pro fee on pro fee, then your fees are probably going to be lower. If you know that about yourself, be honest about that. But if you're willing to, present the treatment plans, convert the perio patients to perio procedures, get the patients to buy the products in the office as indicated by their health levels, of course. If you're doing all these things, then you should be able to get paid more. Offices often balk at someone who's asking for like $2 more an hour, especially compared to the other resumes that they have on their desk. But if you show them, you explain to them that, hey, I'm willing to do this and I'm going to earn your office more money, then they're not going to think twice about those $2 an hour or the $16 per day extra that you're asking, because they're going to make it up on that first toothbrush that you sell or the one PeriProtect tray that the patient purchases. If you follow through with this, then you're going to be a highly sought after temp, and you can also command higher wages according to the scope of practice you're willing to work within. Number 4, and this is the last one I want to touch on, is being presentable with both dress and attitude. I wasn't even going to talk about this one actually, because I was like, well, maybe this is very particular to the few areas that I've worked in my past. And then I started talking to some other people that have, similar role to me, and it's kind of the same everywhere. And so we have these really pleasant temps in most areas, but then there are just as many, and sometimes it seems that there's even more, who are just like curmudgeon-y. The people that come into the office, and first of all, they're always running late. It seems like they come in right as the shift starts. They don't come in any earlier. There's a cloud over their head. They haven't reviewed any of the charts. Their scrubs look like they've been balled up on the floor and just like thrown in a corner the night before. They come in, they act like they don't really care. They don't really want to be there. That's not really what an office is looking for. Offices rely on repeat business. And having a bad attitude temp is a really quick way to lose thousands of dollars for that office. I, oddly, even though I'm a podcaster, I'm extremely introverted. And so I get that we're not all going to be bubbly and sunshine and, kind of in your face and, all this craziness. And of course, that's not what I'm asking you to be and not what I'm asking you to do. But, using kind words, the pleases and the thank yous. Doctor, will you please do this exam? Thank you for letting me temp here today. Assistant A, will you please help me perio chart? Or, offering your help to them. Is there anything I can do for you? Just being a kind person, a very polite person, and then having, presentable scrubs and, having showered and doing all of those things, I think is just essential. Again, especially just like offices rely on repeat business for patients, you also will be relying on repeat business for these offices. And so your demeanor and your appearance makes a huge difference. And, their offices throughout the US are just in a high need of hygienists. And if temping is your gig, awesome. And I'm really not trying to poo-poo any of the temp service agencies that are out there. Use them if that's your thing. But if you want to have more control, if you want to make sure that you have consistent work, I think some of these points that we talked about today would be in your best interest. I wish you all the best of luck. And thank you for listening to this episode. And we'll see you next week.
A tale of two hygienists.